Okay, so have you ever like put on your favorite shoot, the one with the awesome design, and wondered how that got there?
It's kind of like magic, right?
Right. And today, that magic,
Mhm.
well, we're deep diving into the world of textile printing operations.
It's a really cool mix of art meeting tech, sort of like what we're doing here.
Huh, yeah, I guess it is. We've got RoleCatcher's career guide on textile printers to guide us today. But before we get into the career stuff, let's talk about what a textile printer actually does.
Yeah, good point.
It's got to be more than hitting print, right?
Oh, way more. Think about it, like prepping the fabric, getting those colors perfect, troubleshooting the machinery. It's way more hands-on than people think.
Troubleshooting. See, that's a tech side I didn't picture. I always thought it was very, I don't know, old school.
There's definitely that element for sure, especially with like screen printing.
Yeah.
But the guide talks about how you got to stay updated, things like digital printing, sustainable inks, that's changing the game.
Sustainable inks. What does that even mean for textile printing?
So it's a huge deal right now. We're talking about inks made from like natural pigments. Some even use algae-based dyes, which is way better than those harsh chemicals they use in traditional printing.
Wow, I had no idea. Okay, so we're talking creative, but also not afraid to get your hands dirty A&D on top of the latest tech. That's a lot.
It is. The guide even mentions it can be physically demanding. You're on your feet a lot. There's chemicals. It's not for everyone.
Definitely something to consider. Not exactly glamorous.
Yep. It's about balancing that passion with like the reality of the job.
Speaking of balance, the guide does mention some good stuff, like you could start your own business
Mhm.
and pretty solid job security.
Which makes sense, right? Think about it. Everything from our clothes to furniture, it all uses printed textiles.
That's true. So say someone's listening and thinking, that's for me.
hmm
How do they even start? What's the path look like?
So the guide lays it out pretty clearly. It starts with entry level, really mastering the basics.
So you're not walking in knowing how to use a giant printing machine on day one.
Not quite. Think of it more like an apprenticeship. Learning the machines, how to prep everything, mix colors, the real basic stuff before you get to printing.
So you got to walk before you can run.
Exactly. And then as you get better, you might become a junior textile printer, doing things like setting up the machines, calibration.
Hold on, calibration. That doesn't sound simple.
Oh, it's not. And at that level, you start doing some troubleshooting, those hiccups we mentioned. So you're becoming a problem solver, not just an operator.
Right. Got to think on your feet.
Exactly. And that just gets more important when you reach the senior level.
That sounds awesome, being the one in charge.
It is pretty cool. You're not just printing other people's designs. You might develop your own techniques, lead a team, even work directly with designers.
Wow, that's a long way from mixing inks.
For sure. But one thing they stress at every level, never stop learning.
Right, because like you said, the technology is always changing, new materials.
It's like fashion, always moving forward.
Both exciting and kind of scary. So let's say you want this job. What are employers looking for? Besides, liking cool designs.
So RoleCatcher says it's a mix of technical skills, that creative side, and even personality.
Okay, let's break that down. What kind of technical stuff are we talking?
Well, obviously, knowing the different textile printing techniques, so like traditional screen printing, but also the digital stuff we talked about.
So it's like old school meets new school.
Exactly. And you got to be good with the machinery, keeping it running, fixing those hiccups. Employers don't want downtime.
Makes sense. But
Yeah.
I can't all be technical, right? You need some art in you too.
Totally. A good eye for detail, knowing your colors, being able to take a design from idea to fabric, those are essential.
So the science and the art of it all.
Yes. And don't forget, this is usually a fast-paced environment, so you got to follow directions, work on your own, and remember those problem-solving skills. Those are key.
Pressure's on. We got to stay creative. Anything else?
One more thing, and this might surprise people. Stamina. You're on your feet for hours, especially during busy seasons.
Okay, so not just a creative mind, but a strong body too. Good to know. So it's challenging, but sounds rewarding.
It definitely is.
Now, the guide mentions that having, a background in art or design helps, but it's not always a deal breaker. What do you think?
Yeah, it really depends. Some places might want you to have a degree, while others care more about what you can do. So, like a killer portfolio, real-world experience, even if you're self-taught, that goes a long way.
So passion can trump the lack of formal education.
It definitely can. Show your talent, your drive, that you really get it.
That's great to hear. So even without a fancy degree, there's a path if you're willing to put in the work.
Absolutely. Internships, entry-level jobs, those are great for getting experience and building your network. And actually, speaking of networking, RoleCatcher has a lot to say about that.
Okay, let's talk about that because who you know can be almost as important as what you know, right?
Totally. And RoleCatcher goes beyond just saying network. They actually give you specific tips, even tools to help.
Like what? Tell me more.
So they have this thing called RoleCatcher.connect, which is designed to connect you with the right people, mentors, collaborators, maybe even future employers.
Wow, like a personal networking assistant?
It's
So it's not just randomly emailing people on LinkedIn.
No way. This is about finding people who can actually help you, who get what you're doing in the textile printing world.
That's amazing. Takes the awkwardness out of networking.
Exactly. And that's just one example. They really go above and beyond, giving you the tools to use what you learn and really take charge of your career.
Now let's be real. There's got to be some challenges, right? It can't all be easy.
Of course, every job has its downsides. One thing the guide mentions is that location can be a factor.
What do you mean?
Well, textile manufacturing, it tends to be in specific areas, hubs, so where you live could affect your job options.
So if you're like out in a rural area, it might be tougher than if you're in a big city with a textile scene.
Yeah, something to consider. And even then, even if you're in the right place, there's still competition.
Which I guess when you're talking about something that's both creative and technical makes sense.
Absolutely. The guide really stresses that you got to find ways to stand out, your portfolio, those in-demand skills, and yeah, that networking, it all matters.
So you got to hustle, not just wait for it to happen.
Exactly, and be ready for the reality of the job market. They make it clear, even with talent and passion, finding the right job takes work, strategy, and yeah, sometimes a little luck.
Which is maybe where those RoleCatcher resources come in. Like they have that interview prep section with, get this, 120,000 interview questions.
It's a lot, right? But it's actually super helpful.
120,000. They must cover everything.
Pretty much. Different roles within textile printing, different experience levels, different types of companies, they've thought of it.
Wow, like a crystal ball for job interviews. What else is hidden in this guide?
They even tell you what interviewers are looking for in your answers. So it's not just about memorizing stuff, it's about understanding what they're really trying to find out.
So you can answer honestly and show them who you are as a textile printer.
Exactly.
That's great, especially if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by everything.
Totally. It's all about feeling confident and ready.
Now, I don't want to give away all their secrets, but tell me a bit about how they handle salary negotiation, because that can be intimidating.
It can be scary, yeah, but it's super important to be prepared.
Especially in a field where experience can vary so much.
Right. RoleCatcher actually gives you real salary data for different textile printing jobs, and they consider things like location, experience, even company size.
So you're not just guessing.
Not at all. You go in knowing what you're worth. Plus, they give you scripts, tips, like actual help with the negotiation itself.
That's incredible, like having your own career coach.
Exactly. It's all about giving you what you need to succeed in textile printing.
Well, I have to say, I'm even more interested in this world now.
Me too. It's fascinating how art, technology, even business all come together.
And speaking of business, I want to hear more about that side of textile printing.
Yeah, me too. Especially now, with online marketplaces and custom designs, it seems like a great time to be an entrepreneur.
The perfect storm for creatives.
Definitely.
We've covered a lot already, but we've only just started to explore what it takes to make it in this field.
Oh yeah, there's so much more to discover.
Stay tuned for part 2. We'll dive into that entrepreneurial side, look at the trends shaping the industry, and share even more from RoleCatcher's amazing guide.
Can't wait.
All right, so we're back diving deeper into textile printing. Last time we talked about the tech, sustainable inks, all that good stuff, but we just scratched the surface of what it takes to really make IT.
Yeah, it's not just knowing the technical stuff, it's the business side, keeping up with trends, pushing yourself creatively. It's a lot.
Exactly. And speaking of pushing boundaries, I want to dig into the whole entrepreneur thing. We touched on it, but what's that path really look like?
You know, it's amazing how much easier it's become for textile printers to start their own thing. Technology's been huge, especially online. You can show your work to the world so easily now.
Right. I can picture it. Someone starts small, maybe custom t-shirts in their garage, then boom, next big sustainable fashion brand.
Totally. And it often does start small. The guide even mentions people who started selling at like craft fairs or on Instagram before they went big time.
So testing the waters, seeing if people dig your style.
Exactly. Building a following organically. And RoleCatcher's very clear about this. There's more to it than just cool designs. They have a whole chapter on the business side, and they don't sugarcoat it.
Okay, lay it on me. What are the challenges? What do you need to be ready for?
First off, a solid business plan is key. It's not enough to love printing. You got to have a roadmap.
So, like, treat your passion like a business. Marketing, finances, all that stuff.
Exactly. Knowing your target market, pricing, understanding your costs, it's crucial. And that can be overwhelming for creative types.
I can see that. Switching gears from art to spreadsheets.
It's a shift for sure. But the guide has tips like online tools for financial stuff, tracking expenses, even inventory.
So you don't need to be a financial genius to get started.
Not at all. And finding mentors, joining entrepreneur groups, that's huge for support.
Bouncing ideas off people who've been there, that's got to be helpful.
For sure, especially at the beginning. Another challenge they talk about is deciding, do you buy your own equipment or outsource the printing?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Go all in or play it safe.
Right. And there's no one answer. It depends on what you're doing, your budget, how much control you want over the process.
So if you're doing small batches custom stuff, you don't need that huge industrial setup right away.
Exactly. Outsourcing can be smarter at first. Test the market, refine your designs. Then, as you grow, you revisit that decision.
Strategic scaling, smart investments.
Yep. And then, as you grow, another hurdle or opportunity is managing that growth well.
The classic problem, you're killing it, but can you keep up?
Exactly. And that's where the business skills matter. Systems, delegating, building a team that gets your vision.
Makes sense. So it's not easy, but with passion, planning, and some luck, it can be amazing.
Absolutely. Seeing people create their own paths is really inspiring.
Speaking of paths, those trends we talked about, what tech advancements are you excited about?
Oh, so many. Digital printing is evolving like crazy. Detail, color accuracy, even printing on more types of fabric. It's unbelievable.
That's a game changer. So much more creative freedom.
Exactly, like going from crayons to an endless palette.
Love that. So no more limits from old school methods.
Exactly. And on top of that, new, more sustainable materials and processes are popping up everywhere.
We talked about inks, but it's bigger than that.
Way bigger. Waterless dyeing, inks made from plants, even the fabrics themselves, recycled materials, organic cotton. It's amazing.
So sustainability is not just a trend, it's becoming a core value.
For sure. RoleCatcher highlights companies doing it right, a whole section on it.
That's awesome. That commitment is really inspiring to see.
It is, and it's only going to get bigger. People care about the environment. They want sustainable options, even for clothes.
It's here to stay, which is good for the planet and the industry.
Absolutely. And for those printers, it's a way to stand out, appeal to the right customers, be more ethical, create a better fashion industry.
Everyone wins. Now, you mentioned 3D printing earlier, and I gotta say, printing a whole t-shirt still feels like sci-fi to me.
Oh, it's definitely futuristic, but it's closer than you think. Not mainstream yet, but some super innovative stuff is happening.
Like what? Give me an example.
Shoes are big. Imagine scanning your foot and printing a shoe perfectly for you.
Wow. Athletes would go crazy for that.
Totally. And it's not just fit. 3D printing can do designs, complex shapes, impossible with old methods.
So a shoe that fits perfectly, but is also super lightweight, breathable, all thanks to how it's printed.
Exactly. And that's one example. Textures, seamless clothes, even tech woven into the fabric. 3D printing is changing the game.
That's wild. Like it could change how we think about textiles entirely.
Totally. Early days, but it's moving fast. Definitely something to watch.
Okay, so exciting stuff, but what about the downsides? Automation, is that a threat? Will robots replace everyone?
It's a fair question, and the guide addresses it head on. Automation is changing things, no doubt.
So some jobs are being done by machines now.
Yes, and that'll continue. But they say full automation of this, it's not happening anytime soon.
Why is that? What can't machines do?
Well, textile printing involves a lot of judgment calls, especially with color. The human eye is still way better than any machine at seeing those subtle differences, those tiny flaws.
So that trained eye, that human touch, it's still essential.
Totally. And then there's creativity. AI can help with design, but that spark, the problem solving, a human touch, machines can't replicate that.
That's good to hear. It's not about replacing us, but working with the technology.
Exactly. The printers who adapt, learn the new systems, they'll thrive.
Embrace the change, don't fear it.
Yes. And that human element, problem solving, the details, the creativity, that's what makes the difference.
That human touch elevates it from just a print to something special.
Exactly. And that's even more valuable as automation becomes the norm.
Now let's talk networking. Why is it so important in this field specifically?
Networking in textile printing is huge, EE. It's how you stay in the loop, find opportunities, meet people who can make or back you. And it's not just fancy events, it's about connecting with people who get IT, who share your passion.
So how do you even start? Especially if you're new, don't know anyone.
RoleCatcher has some good advice. Start with industry events, trade shows, conferences, workshops, that kind of thing.
Those can be intimidating, though, walking into a room full of strangers.
True, but remember, everyone's there for the same reasons. Connect, learn, be inspired by textile printing. Just start talking, ask questions. Show that you're genuinely interested.
Don't overthink it. Just be passionate and you. What if you're not, like, a super outgoing person? Any other ways to network?
Definitely. LinkedIn is your friend. Don't just send requests. Engage in conversations. Share your thoughts. Build those virtual relationships.
So show what you know. Establish yourself online.
Exactly. And honestly, reach out to people whose work you admire.
Like message a textile printer whose designs you love.
Yes. Most are happy to share, especially with those starting out. Be genuine, respect their time, and be clear about why you're reaching out.
Authenticity, being a good community member online and offline.
Exactly. And it's a two-way street. Give back, offer help, share what you know.
Love that. Help others, be supportive.
Exactly. It comes back around.
Yeah.
Speaking of connections, let's talk about those career stages again. Starting at the bottom, what's that like in textile printing?
Everyone starts somewhere, right?
Totally. Entry level, it's all about the fundamentals. Paying your dues.
So what does that actually mean? What are you doing?
Think of it like learning a trade. You're operating the machines, mixing inks, prepping screens, following instructions to a T to make sure the prints are perfect.
Sounds like attention to detail is key.
Yeah.
And a willingness to learn.
Absolutely. Show you're reliable, you care about the work. Then, as you get better, you move up maybe to a junior textile printer role.
What's that like? More responsibility.
Definitely. Setting up the machines, calibration, even some training of new hires. You're making decisions using your judgment more.
Not just following orders anymore.
Right. And then, if you keep learning, growing, you might reach the senior textile printer level.
That's the dream for many. What's it like reaching that level of mastery?
Every day is different, which is cool. But senior printers, they're the experts. They get the art and the tech, and they oversee everything.
So not just skilled, but also leaders, problem solvers, innovators.
Exactly. Developing new techniques, experimenting with materials, fixing tough problems, leading teams, working directly with designers. It's a lot.
Wow, you need so many skills. Creativity, technical stuff, leadership.
You got it. And that's what makes it so rewarding. You're always learning, facing new challenges, making a real impact.
It's inspiring to see how much room there is to grow in this field.
Absolutely. It's a journey, and each step has its own challenges and rewards.
We've talked a lot about skills, qualifications, but what about the less tangible stuff? Those personality traits that help you succeed in textile printing.
Oh, those are huge. Skills are important, but those qualities can set you apart.
So it's not just what you know, but who you are.
Exactly. You got to be curious, love learning. This industry is always changing. New tech, materials, techniques, you can't be afraid to learn.
If you're not learning, you're falling behind.
Exactly. And that ties into adaptability. Things change fast, you got to adjust, find creative solutions.
Expect the unexpected.
Exactly. And that's where resilience comes in. Setbacks happen, learn from it, stay positive. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Not every print is going to be perfect.
Exactly. And speaking of perfect, attention to detail, that's crucial.
One tiny mistake can ruin a whole print.
For sure. You got to catch those flaws. Maintain high standards.
So, detail-oriented people, this is for you.
Absolutely. And nowadays, with so much collaboration, good communication is key too.
Right, you're working with designers, other printers, clients.
Exactly. Communicate clearly, listen well, build relationships. It's all connected.
It takes a team.
For sure. And lastly, honestly, you gotta love this. Textile printing, it's art, ND tech, creativity, ND precision. You gotta have that passion to really thrive.
It's appreciating the whole process, from idea to finished product.
Yes. Passion is what makes it truly fulfilling.
I see that passion in so many successful printers.
Absolutely.
Now, for those just starting out, what resources are out there? The guide mentions RoleCatcher has a lot to offer.
They're great. They give you practical advice, not just what to do, but how.
Love that. Information is useless if you don't know what to do with it.
Exactly. Like, they have a whole section on CVs, cover letters, even AI tools to tailor them for each job.
Because a generic CV just doesn't cut it anymore. Yep. And they have tons of interview questions specific to different jobs, industries.
So you can practice, feel confident.
Exactly. They even help with salary negotiation once you get the job.
Wow, they really do cover it all.
They do. Plus, they have a great online community, connect with people, ask questions, share your experiences.
Sometimes the best advice comes from those who've been there.
For sure. They even have a mentorship program, pairing newbies with seasoned pros.
That's amazing, like having your own personal guide.
Right. RoleCatcher's really created a one-stop shop for careers, especially in fields like this, creative and technical.
Totally agree. Now let's zoom out. Big picture. What's coming next for textile printing? What are the big trends, challenges?
That's a big one. One thing that's only going to get bigger is sustainability.
People are paying attention to the impact of fashion. Aren't they?
Absolutely. They care about where their clothes come from, how they're made, the impact on the planet, and the people involved.
So that puts pressure on everyone, including textile printers, to be more sustainable. For sure. And that's a good thing. We'll see so much innovation in the next few years. Eco-friendly inks, recycled materials, saving water and energy during printing. It's exciting.
Beautiful, A&D. Good for the planet.
Exactly. It's a huge opportunity to make a difference. Another big one is on-demand and personalized production.
Tell me more.
So digital printing is so good now, it's easier than ever to make small batches of custom designs.
So instead of mass production, you can make unique pieces just for one person.
Well, exactly. More creative freedom, faster, less waste. It's a win-win.
It's like fast fashion, but without the ethical and environmental problem.
Yes, and I think people are only going to want more personalized stuff in the future.
So those who can do that, they're ahead of the curve.
Definitely. Oh, and 3D printing too. That's going to keep growing.
3D printing for textiles. That still sounds so futuristic.
I know, right? But it's happening, creating textures, patterns, even whole garments with 3D printing.
Wow, you're not printing on fabric, you're printing the fabric itself.
Exactly. It could change everything about how we design and produce textiles.
The possibilities are mind-blowing. Okay, so we've got the opportunities. What about the challenges? What's going to be tough for textile printers in the future?
Well, one thing is finding that balance between being creative and being efficient. On demand, customization, that means faster turnaround without sacrificing quality or creativity.
You got to be quick, but still make it good.
Exactly. So streamlining production, reducing waste, keeping costs down, that's essential.
You need that artistic vision and that business sense.
Yes. And as technology gets more advanced, you got to keep up.
New machines, new software, it's a lot to learn.
It is. Staying current is key. And then, of course, there's always the pressure to stay ahead of the trends.
Because what's cool today might be old news tomorrow.
Exactly. You got to know what's next in fashion, be a trendsetter, not a follower.
It's about having your finger on the pulse.
Yes. It takes creativity, intuition, and a little bit of risk-taking.
Because sometimes you got to break the rules to stand out.
Absolutely. Oh, and one more challenge specific to textile printing, color management.
Right, because the same color can look totally different depending on the fabric, the printing, even the lighting.
Exactly. Getting those colors right consistently, it's both art and science.
It's more than just picking a pretty color.
Way more. You need to know color theory, color systems, how different printing processes affect it. It's complex.
It's amazing how they make it look so easy.
It takes real skill.
Now, for someone thinking about this career, what's the job outlook like? Is there even a future with automation happening?
It's tricky. Automation is changing things, like we said.
Some jobs are being replaced.
True. But the demand for skilled printers, those who can use the high-tech stuff, understand color and sustainability, those jobs are still out there.
So different jobs, not necessarily fewer jobs.
Exactly. It's evolving, but the skills are still in demand.
That's good to hear. Okay, we've covered so much, but one last question. What advice would you give someone starting out in textile printing?
That's a great question, honestly. Be passionate, love textiles, love design. This takes dedication, hard work. You gotta really love it.
If you don't, it'll show.
For sure. And be realistic. It's competitive, fast-paced, demanding.
Not always as glamorous as it seems.
Nope. You gotta be adaptable, resilient, think on your feet.
Embrace the challenges, learn from them.
Exactly. And put yourself out there, network, find mentors, never stop learning.
In this industry, you're always a student.
Truth.
It sounds like you really need that passion to fuel you, especially when things get tough.
It's true. Passion is what keeps you going when the printer's jammed or a deadline's looming.
Speaking of passion,
Oh,
let's talk more about those textile printers turned entrepreneurs. We've touched on it, but with all this tech, the focus on sustainability, the whole customization thing, it feels like a perfect time to be your own boss in this field.
absolutely. You see it everywhere in the industry. This guide even features a bunch of those stories, people who started small and built their own brands. Some are even like globally known now.
That's amazing. But I'm guessing it's not all easy. What makes it harder for a textile printing business compared to, say, opening a bakery or something?
That's a good question, and it's something the guide gets into. They really stress understanding your production process, your costs.
So it's not just about knowing how to print. You have to know how much that print is costing you.
Yeah.
Right. Materials, labor, all of it.
Exactly. And that can be really tricky when you're starting out. They have this example. Think about printing on silk versus like organic cotton. Those materials have wildly different prices, which changes how much profit you make.
Right. So you need that business brain on top of the creative one. It's a lot to juggle.
Totally. Pricing your stuff right, managing your money, even the boring stuff like taxes and inventory.
Not as fun as designing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So for those who might not be business-minded, what does RoleCatcher suggest?
Start small. Test things out before you go all in. Maybe sell at local markets, do some custom orders, even collaborate with bigger brands. It's a lower risk way to learn, build your brand, see what people actually want.
Dip your toes in before you jump in head first. That makes sense.
Exactly. And they're big on finding mentors, joining groups, people who get it.
Because going solo can be tough, especially with all the decisions you have to make.
For sure. Having that support system, people who understand the industry, that's huge.
Right. Those networking skills are key again.
Totally. Having people to lean on makes a world of difference.
So for anyone listening who's feeling a bit overwhelmed, thinking, how do I even start? What's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Don't be afraid to go for it. Starting a business is always a risk, but it can be incredibly rewarding. And honestly, you don't need to know everything right away. Just keep learning, ask for help, and never lose that passion for what you're doing.
That's fantastic advice. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of textile printing operations. What a journey it's been.
I know, right?
We've covered so much ground, from the tech to the trends, the career paths to the entrepreneurial spirit. We've seen how this industry blends art and technology in such a unique and inspiring way.
And the best part is, there's always more to learn.
Exactly. This is just the beginning. So, to everyone listening, whether you're drawn to the design aspect, the technical side, or the thrill of creating something beautiful and unique, remember, the world of textile printing is full of possibilities. So go explore, get creative, and keep those printing presses running.
Hear, hear.
That's all the time we have for today. Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.